What's going on, Assassins? Today I want to talk about a loose end, if you will. In the past three Assassin's Creed entries, the games have had a lot of loose ends that they really do need to tie up. And one man in particular is such a loose end that he really should have his own DLC. I'm talking about none other than Reda. Reda really is a wild card in this series. We first meet him way back in Egypt, and here he is in Valhalla almost 1,000 years later. Like, what is the secret to his longevity? How does he have his armory and his wealth? And what does he need these opals for? There's like so many questions in regards to this guy. And I'll tell you what, when I first did a video about this, a lot of people thought I was crazy. They thought I was reading too deep into this, or that, I was completely insane believing that he was immortal. 3 years ago, when Origins came out, I had said that he was absolutely immortal. Nobody believed me. So I'm going to give you the proof as to why I did believe he was immortal and what I think is going on now, and why I think he also needs his own DLC. So first off, when we first meet him, we're Bayek. And of course, we're in ancient Egypt. We're in 49 BCE. All right, this game takes place way back then. You first meet him. He's just this, shop owner. He's got his carpet out. He's got all kinds of weapons and whatnot out. And as you can see over on the right-hand side, he even has the Medusa shield, which you get in later games, which is kind of wild. So it was kind of shocking to see him in Valhalla, but not really. So the first clue that I had in regards to his longevity was the fact that he kind of tells you these weird stories occasionally. Not necessarily going and, performing one of his daily tasks. You can talk to him, and Bayek is genuinely curious about his heritage, like his parents, what happened to them. And, the first story he tells you is this, about Phylakitai actually taking him, or taking his parents, and, sticking them in some kind of iron bull, which was a torture device way back then. It was literally a piece of iron in the shape of a bull. You were able to put people inside of it, and either the heat of the sun or they could light a fire underneath it, and it would burn the people alive. Next time you talk to Reda about his parents, he tells you a totally different story. So right there, the two stories didn't jive. And I kind of thought that there was something mysterious about that. Later on, though, you're told that you've got a brand new shop owner who's coming and setting up shop down here. And you meet this guy believing that he is the actual shop owner, but he is not. Now, what's really weird is that this guy, you never see him again. You don't even know who the heck he is. He's dressed kind of like Reda, but he doesn't obviously look like Reda. He doesn't have, any features of him or anything like that. And he actually introduces Reda. But who is this dude? If Reda employs only children, why was this guy here? Possibly to help him get, all around, because he looks like a child and he would need an adult to actually do business. So that's what I'm assuming this guy is for. But it's really weird that Reda is here. Now, part of the loose ends that I want to know is Reda went from Egypt to England. He's in England. Assassin's Creed Valhalla takes place around 872 to 878 AD, which means that that's over 920 some odd years that Reda has been alive from the events of Assassin's Creed Origins. Now, aside from that, aside from like just his age, we can assume that he speaks English because he has been traveling. That would make sense. Why he left Egypt, I don't know. Maybe he was there for a short time and he decided to leave there. He decided to come to England. It's entirely possible that he didn't even originate in Egypt. Because when we meet him in Egypt, we don't even know how old he is. All we know is that he's there. We don't know his exact age there. He appears to be around like a 12-year-old, maybe younger. But it's like really weird that, we follow him all this way. I actually checked out Far Cry Primal, and as I was playing that, I thought that the characters, some of the cave people, actually looked like Reda. So, to me, it wouldn't be that far-fetched if Reda was, in fact, around during prehistoric times. Now, was he? I don't know. Because, again, we do not have any information about his exact age when you meet him in Origins. But if we're seeing him over 900 years later in Valhalla, it's safe to assume that he's way older than we assume he is in Origins when you first meet him. In fact, he's very well versed. He's pretty much an adult in a kid's body. He's a shrewd businessman. He's doing all kinds of things. He does it up big. He's traveling around every major city that you go to. He's there. So how is this possible? This is just one of the crazy things that I want to know as far as this guy goes. Okay, so before we go any further, I just want to let you guys know, even though I put it in the description, that there are spoilers in this video. Okay? If you haven't played Origins, you haven't played all of Valhalla, get ready to shut this off and come back to it later. Otherwise, keep enjoying it because this is going to be some heavy stuff. Anyway, one of the initial reasons that I believed, or as further proof of my belief that Reda was immortal 3+ years ago, was right here. What you're looking at, this family right here, the child's name is Kawab. Now, I don't know Kawab's exact age. Obviously, he's a child. He might be around Reda's age at the time that we meet him, but he is obviously a child, and he is the son of the Scarab. The Scarab is one of the people that Bayek has to kill in the main campaign of Assassin's Creed Origins. It's one of the enemies of the Order of the Ancients, which obviously are the predecessors of the Templars. So what happens is that Bayek ends up murdering the Scarab, and unfortunately Kawab sees the end result. So this honestly would be a normal reaction that Kawab has. Your father, if you know him as the kindest, gentlest person who takes care of the community, takes care of the city, takes care of your family, loves you unconditionally, genuinely a good guy, all of a sudden you discover that he's really a monster, he's a murderer, he hurts people on the low, he'll do anything to hide his secret, including cutting the tongue out of the mouth of his wife's father because he was onto him or he was getting close. Doing things like that, it's kind of a shock. You wouldn't want to believe it. That's obvious. If you know your father as just a stand-up kind of person, your mother as a stand-up kind of person, anybody, your best friend, and then all of a sudden you discover that they're a monster, there's a good chance that you're probably not going to believe it initially. And Kawab took this personally. So now we get to Assassin's Creed Origins, the DLC, the very first one, the hidden ones. This takes place in 38 BCE. So this takes place 11 years later. So for those of you who don't know or who may be confused, time works differently in BC time. Okay? Instead of going from the year 1 to 2021, which we're in right now, it works kind of backwards. It counts down. So it'll be from where we started here is 49 BC in the main campaign, and it counted down 11 points to 38 BCE which is where we are
I am
now.
not your enemy,
So it's
Kawab.
11 years
Do you want me
later,
to do
and
this?
here's Kawab again. He
For the
has not
Dr.
let this
Haka!
go. He
Forever
has this
Ruda the
vendetta
Kamales!
against Bayek, and he wants him some Bayek bad. He takes the moniker of the Scarab, which
Haka's
was his
little boy has
father's,
grown up.
and he has his own little
Which
shadow
boy?
group. They are the shadow of the Scarab. That is their group. He also has a shadow of the North and a shadow of the South,
Still winning.
two Phylakites of his own that are out to hunt Bayek. They want him bad. It's revenge
Same
for
thing
his
as my
father.
father did.
And Bayek, rather than killing Kawab, actually takes pity on him and explains his point of view to him. And while Kawab feels that he didn't avenge his father, that he should be destroyed because he didn't set out and complete the mission that he wanted to when it came to Bayek.
I'm shocked.
Bayek still didn't want him, to go down that path of vengeance or a darker path or
This
die for
is what
nothing.
I wanted
He
to show
wanted
you.
him to rise above what his
Endless
father was.
deserts and mountains.
And in doing that, he
How
actually
did you live
gives
on the
Kawab
surface?
the chance to redeem himself.
Desert
He has his own
pulses at times.
redemption arc in
How
which,
did you answer
rather
back
than do
with your
bad like he's
fight?
been doing the past 11 years, he's been killing, he's been
All my life,
murdering, he's been practicing his skills
I've been
so that
revenge
when he met Bayek,
and killing.
he'd be able to kill him or match him and defeat
I
him
believe what
in
you
the
are
name of his
saying.
father. Bayek didn't want to see him and his skills go to waste. He
Give
didn't
me
want him
the
to
strength, my heart,
die knowing
to
that
transcend
everything
my
was for
pain,
nothing. Instead of
to
killing
become
him
shadow
or just leaving him
for
in the
our
desert,
cause.
he gives him the
Forget
opportunity to
yourself,
become one of the hidden
to
ones,
become one of
the
us.
predecessors to the assassins. So Kawab accepts and decides to become an
You will
assassin. Now,
replace my name,
this ensures that
my friend.
Kawab's future and future
I will
generations that
find a new one
Kawab,
as a
would
liberal
sire would actually have a legacy that was a
alongside
little
you,
bit
Bayek.
better than what the Scarab did, where it was underhanded and whatnot.
Now
This legacy,
you are
it would be
real.
positive. You'd be doing these things to help the people, to change the course of history against tyrants and whatnot. So it turned out better. But 11 years later, and Kawab is a grown man, do you know who's not grown or who hasn't aged at all? Reda. And a lot of people were saying, oh, it's, programming laziness, whatever. You can't give me that. This is a game that has day and night cycles, that people go to sleep, that people eat, they walk around, they use the bathroom like randomly, and then they get choked out mysteriously. So, why would they program all this other stuff in the game and then mess up when it comes to Reda himself? They could have aged him. It would have been no problem for them to age him a couple of
You are
years.
but a boy.
You know,
How did you
they
get
went
here?
through all the trouble to age Kawab. Also, there's a character named Esocles who is a Greek that you meet in the main campaign. He's a child, and he has you jumping off of all these buildings and whatnot for fun, and just having his friends join in, and they're all amazed at Bayek's skills of leaping. But later on in DLC, he's also an adult. So there's no way on Earth that Reda was not immortal. But we need to know and get to the bottom of why and how. Now, one of the things could be that he's a sage. He could have some sort of ability where he's able to just survive that long, like the sages do. Or maybe he reincarnates and he knows who he is. Or it's quite possible that he has a piece of Eden that we don't see, and that piece of Eden is what's keeping him alive for
Is
so
there so
long.
much to be found
That's
here?
another possibility. Maybe way back prior to the events of Assassin's Creed Origins, maybe 500 BCE, he found something and he just stayed with it and he carried it with him. And he began to like acquire knowledge, and he thought that the best thing for him to do was to become a merchant. Nobody would know him exactly. He could move around freely with no issues. It would be almost perfect. Nobody would question a merchant. Nobody would just wonder what the heck he's doing, and he could just move different places and different countries every generation. So, Bayek, let's say he had another child, and then all of a sudden, Reda would leave at that time and come back to Bayek's grandchild or great grandchild. In the meanwhile, he would leave Egypt. He would go to, like, let's say somewhere in Europe. Let's say he went to France, and he was there. And he would set up a shop and continue his work. And then once he made friends over there or did whatever he does over there, then he would come back to Egypt or somewhere else. It's almost perfect for him to be a merchant. It makes a lot of sense. It really does. Now, as far as what he could be holding that is giving him long life, I'm initially thinking it's these feathers because he always has them. He doesn't just have them here, he has them in Valhalla as well. So, could they be possibly the feathers of a phoenix? Maybe he only has a certain amount, and every lifetime that he would live normally, one falls off or something like that. I mean, it's possible. I don't know. What I do know is that he's constantly got these feathers. Now, it might make sense back here in this time period in ancient Egypt because they used a lot of different materials in their clothes and whatnot. It would be nothing for him to wear those feathers, or maybe it's where he's originally from that he even had those in his clothing. Now, we could make excuses for that, but what about almost 1,000 years later? Why would he still have these feathers on his shoulder? And was it going to be fashionable even at that time? Maybe, maybe. I mean, as you can see, a lot of the Viking equipment has furs and feathers and reskins and everything. Way to go, Ubisoft. But anyway, why would he still have these feathers in the exact same spot and it looks like there's a couple missing or they're not as rough or as fresh as they were? You know, it's kind of weird. And we know that this is actually Reda, the very same Reda, because there is a part where Eivor will come to the settlement and Reda is telling the children a story basically about Bayek. And then there's also this letter that is read in Bayek's voice, which is another really cool nod to what was going on in Origins. So this is the same Reda. This isn't like every firstborn is named Reda and he just happens to look that way. He still carries himself with the same respect, the same dignity that he had. And when he tells the story of Bayek and Aya, he tells it as if he was there. He's not telling it like somebody told him the story. He's telling it like it was yesterday. So there's a lot to unpack there as far as this man's longevity, and there are a bunch of loose ends that we need tied up as far as Reda goes. I'd love to know what you think, though. Do we need these loose ends to be tied up, or do you think that this is just going to be like a recurring egg that happens in every other Assassin's Creed game from now until like forever, until the series dies? Do you think that Reda is really a key person to the Assassins, or do you think that he's just there for fluff and, you know, just to give us a mystery and whatnot? Why do you think Reda has lived for so long? And do you think that Reda is reincarnated as Reda? Do you think that he just has lived that long? What do you think? Do you think he needs his own DLC or even a spin-off IP? Would you like to know what he was doing from the time of Assassin's Creed Origins, way back in 49 BCE, all the way to now, 873 AD, in this current game? Would you like to know what he was doing for almost 1,000 years? Would you like to know what he did in the background, what was going on, because those things are they're things I want to know. There's a lot of questions I have for this, and that's just one of the things that I would like to know. Like, what is going on with him? He is definitely a loose end, and it should be tied. We need to know what's going on with this guy and why he exists. Is he really there for our benefit? Or is he there to spy on us? Is he really a Templar in disguise? And he just follows the assassins. He follows the path. You know? Did he know Basim way back when? Did he know that these guys were going to be the reincarnations of the Norse mythology? Do you think that he ran into Cassandra? Do you think that, he's using all those kids that are the Thousand Eyes to his benefit to spy on the assassins? Or do you think he really does genuinely want to help out? What is he doing? How has he lived this long? What do you think the future holds? Those are the questions I have. Again, it's a very loose end that needs to be tied. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please, by all means, like and subscribe. It helps this channel out an awful lot. As always, I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, take care, be good, stay safe, take care of each other. I'll see you guys in the next one. You know we end this on a ya yeet. And continue to question what is going on in this series.
Ya yeet!